A wonderful performance against Houston. Soto, of course, has been superb. Volpe looks like he's a different kind of player. They're getting all sorts of contributions. The kid pitched very well last night off to Tommy John. I don't know why he took him out. Boone, 4 2/3. He was an out or so away from getting a win. I know he was on a pitch count, and he's coming off an injury, but let him get a W. Jeez, come on. My God. It takes him out of the game. He was sharp as heck. And then the Yankees, of course, did what they do offensively and beat the Diamondbacks out in Arizona. Their offense has been superb right now. They scored 5 runs. I mean, the Yankees has got it going. I mean, their lineup is excellent. And LeMahieu in that lineup right now, and obviously they got a little bloop single by Cabrera, who's done a great job himself, filling in for LeMahieu at third base. Soto's always in the middle of things. He's taking millions of pitches. And the Yankees, you could just sense it. Last year, the very disappointing season, the big trade they made to get Soto in the off year. Soto with Judge 2-3 in that lineup. Torres leading off. You talk about the Dodgers at 1-2-3, and rightfully so. How about the Yankees at 1-2-3? I mean, that's as good as it gets with what they're doing. And the Yankees right now, they're going to beat. I think they're going to beat the Diamondbacks 2 more games. They got a lot of juice. They got a lot of momentum. They feel very good about themselves. They have won 5-0. It's only the third or fourth time in the Yankee history that they've won 5 straight games. Even the '98 team didn't do that. The '98 team struggled out of the gate. Even the '98 team didn't do that. None of those Tory championship teams did that. It's been a long time since the Yankees the season 5-0 in the American League East, and you just like the feel of them. You like that. I've been doing this now a couple days in a row. I've been paying attention. I'm on top of it, and the Yankees are going to have a big year. I mean, they really are going to have a big year. Soto is going to. He loves it here. He's good in the big stage. He's going to love Yankee Stadium with that swing. Austin Wells had a big game last night. He's going to hit 20 homers. The catcher at Yankee Stadium with that swing of his. I mean, the Yankees are good. I mean, the Yankees and Orioles got a chance to be a hell of a race in the AL East. I mean, I don't know about the Red Sox, Tampa, or the whether the Toronto can hang around. That looks like a hell of a race between Yankees and Orioles. I think that might be a 1-2 deal in the American League East. So that's number one. And I'll tell you about the Mets, and I've been on this theme too. They're trying to split the needle, and it's very difficult. Yes, we're competitive. Yes, we have a chance. Yes, we have an opportunity to make the playoffs with the 6 teams in both leagues. Why not us win 83, 84 games? We think we can do that. I don't see it. I think the Mets are going to have a long year. Their offense is going to hit eventually. J.D. Martinez will return. I understand that. They can bring, or they can say everything they want about, well, if you lose 4 in a row now, what difference does it make if you lose it in June? When you start the season 0-4, it sets a terrible tone all year long. If you lose 3-4 games in a row in July, June, August, you can overcome that. To start the season winless for the first 4 or 5 days, terrible weather, the crowd booed them off the field in the 10th inning. That is where it gets dicey, and the feeling of the franchise feels bad. That's the difference between losing 4 in a row to start the year and losing 4 in a row in the middle of the year. There's a huge difference. 4 in a row, middle of the year, you've established a tempo, a foundation of what your team is about. You do it right out of the gate, and all of a sudden everybody, and especially in New York City, and then the Yankees 6 miles away are on fire. I mean, don't tell me the Yankees don't pay attention, the Mets don't pay attention to that, because they do, because the fans do. The Met fan does. And then the Braves are playing well. I mean, I got a bad feeling about the Mets. Their pitching is terrible. Last night, notwithstanding, Manaea did a nice job, pitched very well. But their pitching, I don't love at all. They haven't hit at all. This Alonso thing with this free agency is going to loom. McNeil's been a disaster. The whole thing over the weekend with Hoskins was stupid. The pitcher thrown behind Hoskins' back was asinine in the 8th inning on Saturday after Hoskins was Babe Ruth earlier in the game, and now the Mets throw behind his back. Mendoza looks a little overwhelmed. I have some issues, and managers can't appeal. He had a 1-game suspension. Be very careful about the Mets. And it's not like they're losing to the Dodgers and the Braves. They're playing the Brewers and the Tigers. I mean, let's take it easy. I mean, I know they're competitive, but geez, and they have been a mess. And so I'd be very, very concerned about the Mets right now as far as the NL East. And remember, the Braves and Phillies are good teams. I'd be a little concerned concerned about Harper. Speaking of the Phillies, he has not done anything, and he had a terrible spring training. A lot of people think he might have a bad back. I'd be a little worried about Harper here out of the gate. He's got some issues, and the Phillies haven't played well. That's neither here nor there. The Mets are what concerns me. And then, of course, the Pirates playing very well. Good win yesterday. They've won 5 in a row, all on the road. Again, lightweights. They're beating the Marlins, the Nationals. They're not beating big teams. But the Pirates, they're not a team that's going to sit there and turn their nose up against any major league team. Anytime the Pirates get a win, it's a good deal. I don't care who they're playing, even Oakland. And so the Pittsburgh Pirates at 5-0, that's an excellent job for them. We give them a little credit. And again, Alfred mentioned Detroit. Their bullpen's been lights out. They have not been scored upon. Again, the White Sox and Mets, they're not playing the heavyweights in the American League, but the Tigers, who haven't had a lot of success lately, even for Hinch, nice job for Detroit and on the road. So Pittsburgh and Detroit you like. The Yankees I love. Blanco does a wonderful job, and I'd be very, very concerned about the Mets. I hate the look of it. I hate the vibe of it. I don't know what they're trying to do. Oh, we'll be in the pennant race, but, we're going to rebuild. That, to me, is very dicey. I'd be very worried about the Mets if I was a Met fan. I know the Met fan is worried about it. I talk to them all the time. They're very concerned. This could be a long year at Citi Field. Nobody's fault, but it could be a long year. That's where we begin. McAdam in a bit on Lucchino, and here is our pal Alana. She'll get us going. Ms. Rizzo, take it away. What do you have for me today?
I'm not certain that it's not anybody's fault in New York. I would be a little concerned right now with the start that they got off to, but it seems like when you're scuffling that bad early out of the gate, a seasoned manager like a Buck Showalter could kind of turn things around quickly before this turns into the 1988 Orioles where they lose 21 in a row. So, again, I wasn't really big on the managerial change. Again, it's probably not all Carlos Mendoza's fault. I'm not suggesting that it is, but this is a team that spent a boatload of money, and they're off to a horrific start this year. They don't have the pitching. I mentioned that yesterday, and I agree, Sean Manaea pitched really well for them, but overall, the Mets don't have the pitching to be able to get things done. Now, as far as the Houston Astros are concerned, good for them. And Joe Espada needed that win, right? As a new manager in Houston, you get swept in the first series of the opening weekend. And Ronel Blanco took it upon himself to get the job done. And what a couple of weeks it has been for this kid, Chris. He welcomes in his second daughter, his second child, finds out that same day, that same afternoon, that he actually made the big league roster for the Houston Astros, and then goes out there and throws the first no-hitter of the 2024 season. No-hitters are rare and special, certainly not as special or rare as perfect games, but this was done against what can be a great offensive team. But the Toronto Blue Jays are so erratic. It's a hitter-friendly park, we get that. And the offense for the Astros really backed him up as far as that was concerned. But the Blue Jays are really an all-or-nothing offense. In the the 2 wins that the Blue Jays have had so far this season, Chris, they've averaged 8.5 runs. In the 3 losses that the Toronto Blue Jays have had so far this season, they've scored a run, and they've averaged a run per game. So it's feast or famine for the Toronto Blue Jays. I get that Bo Bichette's not fully healthy. He's been out of the last 2 games with that neck injury, but the window of opportunity for the Blue Jays is closing with the services of Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Bo Bichette. I think they're free agents in the next couple of years. So overall, this is a team that's hitting 184, which is second worst in the big leagues. Not to take anything away from Ronel Blanco's performance. What's crazy is what you alluded to earlier. In this day and age, when starters barely throw 5 innings, he threw a complete game. That's key. The calendar. Normally, pitchers pitch their first or second time through as far as the outing is concerned. They finally get to 85 or 100 pitches. He was allowed to go 105. And maybe Joe Espada's like, you know what? I'm going to do whatever it takes to win a game because we're 0-4 so far this season. But good for him. Congratulations to them. It's kind of like a throwback game, and you love to see it, Chris.
100% right. I'm with you. I love the fact that Espada let him pitch, and I think part of it was the bullpen. But what the heck? He's 30 years of age. Give him a chance. Good job, Alana. 1 note. Feller 40 was the no-hitter. I think it was against the White Sox. I had to double-check that. 30. It was the White Sox. 36. It was 40, not 36. My error there. Larry Lucchino passed away, age of 78. Very unheralded and very successful. Sean McAdam, of course, does a super job. MassLive.com, supervising reporter. reporter, covers the Red Sox. He runs it. He's the boss, and he knows all things Red Sox and all things baseball. Sean, thank you. Wish you have it on a better note. I know you scrambled to do this today, so we appreciate. In a lot of ways, everybody in baseball knows, but public, they do not know. He's was a very instrumental person. Ballparks, franchises, Theo, very instrumental person in baseball the last 30, 40 years. Let's discuss that first. Go ahead.
Yeah, no question, Chris. He was a extremely consequential figure in Major League Baseball from the 1980s until just a few years ago when he effectively stopped his day-to-day involvement with the Red Sox. But hugely consequential, and you mentioned ballparks. He was one of the driving forces behind Oriole Park at Camden Yards, which is in many ways the most impactful ballpark in modern history because it ushered in that whole era of retro style with new amenities ballpark that became the blueprint for ballparks all over the country. And Oriole Park at Camden Yards was the first, and Larry was the driving force behind that. He also later contributed certainly to the construction of Petco Park, another fine ballpark in San Diego, and his impact on the Red Sox as a franchise for a period of about 13 or 14 years cannot be overstated. As the president and CEO, John Henry was the principal owner, remains the principal owner, Tom Warner the chairman. But for much of that period, Lucchino was in many ways the public face of the ownership and upper management construction of the Red Sox. And he could be a force of nature. He was hard driving, demanding. He was not an easy person to work for, as evidenced by the fact that Theo Epstein, for whom he served as a mentor and brought to Boston to become the youngest general manager in the history of the game, departed the team after 2005 in something of a power struggle with Lucchino, only to return a few months later. But Lucchino pushed people hard. That was his style, and he got the results, particularly in Boston. Here was a team that had gone 86 years without a title. Lucchino, Henry, and Warner arrive in 2002. 2 years later, they win. They win again in 07 and win again in 13. So there's no denying the sort of impact he had, not just on the game, but particularly the Red Sox as a franchise.
Let's do two things with Boston. First, the rebuilt of Fenway Park. He has to get some credit for that, too. I know for a while there they were thinking about going somewhere else, but he did a wonderful job of making sure Fenway expanded properly, used all the footprints, added seats, monsters, this, that, and the other, seats above the left field, out in left field. He has to get some credit for that, too. Correct, Sean?
No question. He was the sort of the architect of the renovation, along with the great Janet Marie Smith, the famed baseball ballpark architect and designer, who was responsible for Oriole Park and so many other ballparks. Lucchino, Warner, and Henry, in purchasing the Red Sox and emerging as the victorious group in that bidding, had made it a staple of their bid to renovate and maintain Fenway. They said it was because that the ballpark was a beloved institution, and all of that is true, but in part it was also financially motivated. They were spending $700 million for the ballpark, the team, and inheriting some debt there, and knew that they were not going to get public assistance on a new ballpark construction in Boston at the time. So they focused on renovating Fenway, and they did a terrific job of that, expanding concourses and fan services, improving amenities, but also keeping the character of the ballpark the same. Fenway Park is in much better shape today in 2024, in large part due to Larry Lucchino, than it was, 25 years ago when that ownership group arrived in town.
All right. How about the trades, Sean? I know he brought Theo in as his GM. I mean, we know Larry, of course, as you said, behind the scenes CEO, business aspects of it, ballparks, everything else. I mean, is he a guy that made some of these trades with Theo? Did he approve everything? Did he leave the baseball operations to the baseball office? How about that?
Well,
for
I
a
think
second?
that was yeah, I think that was at the heart sometimes of the conflict between Lucchino and Epstein, in that as a president and CEO of the team, Lucchino sought to be involved in some of the baseball decisions, and Epstein wanted more autonomy, didn't want the pushback on the business end, wanted to be able to operate in his own sphere. And Lucchino was nothing if not involved. So there was always that push and pull there. I think Larry emerged as a more dominant figure after 2005, when Epstein left the team for a number of months. He was certainly more involved there. That was the year that they traded for Josh Beckett and Mike Lowell, which was a huge part of the 2007 championship run. So he had his hands in just about everything, which sometimes rubbed people the wrong way. But that was his nature. He wanted a say. He wanted to make sure he knew what was going on in every aspect of the organization, and he was going to do so whether it rankled people or not.
I know I had him on radio. That's how I know this. He wasn't very pleased with the Shaughnessy, a wonderful writer, and the Francona book, because that made the Red Sox hierarchy look bad when Terry left. And I know Larry wasn't very pleased about that. Tell me about that friction. What can you tell me there? Go ahead.
Yeah, Terry Francona left the team in 2000 after a just brutal collapse in September of 2011, when they led the wild card race going into September, and on the very final night of the season were eliminated as they lost to the Orioles and the Rays beat the Yankees. That put the Red Sox on the sideline, and within days, Terry Francona was out. There was the feeling that the Red Sox had kind of slimed Francona on his way out the door. There were leaks from upper management and ownership about things that had gone on in Francona's personal life that Francona took exception to. And I don't know that relationship ever healed. And frankly, I don't think it's a great relation. It was a great relationship after that between Lucchino and Theo Epstein. To a certain degree, Theo had mended fences and has mended fences with John Henry and Tom Warner, and is in fact now part of the club again as a limited partner and involved in Fenway Sports Group. But some of the wounds that came about from Francona's departure and later Epstein's were never fully put back together, and there were some hard feelings that lasted a long time. And then in 2015, Lucchino was effectively muscled out of his job as president and CEO. He remained president and CEO emeritus of Fenway Sports Group, and of course was a partner and owner of now the Worcester Red Sox. That was another highly controversial move on Lucchino's part. He was, despite years of trying, unable to secure financing for a new ballpark in Rhode Island, and ultimately moved the team across state lines to Worcester, Massachusetts, where they reside now, and oversaw the construction of Polar Park. But that was an also controversial move on Lucchino's part.
Well, here's the bottom line. And you're right. You're in baseball for that long. You're going to do some things that, people are not going to like, and you're not going to be 100% all the time. Here's the bottom line. He gets the credit for the ballparks, especially Camden Yards, because, as you said, it was the first one. The Chicago Park came about 6 months earlier, and what a difference that is. That's number one. And number two, he brings Lucchino to Boston. Epstein to Boston, which is a home run. You can't argue that. And number three, whether he's involved in, David Ortiz coming, whatever the case, he is the CEO when they win 3 championships. Yep. So no matter how you handle it, that's a hell of a resume, is it not?
It certainly is. You cannot tell the story of the Boston Red Sox in the 21st century without devoting a large part of that story to Larry Lucchino. And he'll be remembered as a guy who did not take no for an answer, who was demanding and hard charging all the time. My favorite Larry story comes on the morning of the 2004 championship parade, days after the Red Sox won the World Series. And of course, they're having this huge parade to celebrate with the duck boats and everything throughout Boston. And he goes into Terry Francona's office and tells Francona that he wants him to get the players to put their uniform tops on to go on the parade. And Francona says, no, I'm not doing that. You know, the players were still half hung over from a couple of days ago and had been celebrating nonstop. And it was everything they could do to get them all together to get on these duck boats and ride through Boston. Francona refuses to get them all in uniform. And Lucchino is screaming at Francona in his office, can't you get these guys to do anything? Conveniently forgetting that in the previous few weeks, they had accomplished what no team in Boston had for 86 years. Or the ability to overcome a 3-0 deficit against the Yankees. But he was never satisfied, and that was part of his appeal.